Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I never thought I'd meet him that night. Honestly, I wasn't even supposed to be there. It was late February, one of those weeks where the cold felt personal, like it hated you. My roommate Kelsey had begged me to come out. She said I needed to get out of my head after everything with my ex. I'd been broke, behind on rent, eating ramen, and scrolling through job boards like it was a full-time job. Kelsey dragged me to a hotel bar downtown, the kind of place that smelled like perfume and old money. Gold light, jazz in the background, and every man there looked like they'd walked out of a finance commercial. I stuck out immediately in my thrift store coat and black jeans. She nudged me. "Smile, girl." "You look like you're at a funeral," I tried. "Feels like one." "Then drink." So I did. That's when he walked in. He wasn't what I expected, not the greasy older guy stereotype. He was maybe late 40s, tall, clean-shaven, salt and pepper hair. Nice coat. His smile was easy, practiced. He ordered whiskey neat, glanced around, then caught my eye. It was that kind of look people only do in movies. Steady, knowing, like he already had a plan. Kelsey whispered, "Oh my God, he's coming this way." I rolled my eyes, but she was right. He stopped at our table. "Ladies," he said, voice low and calm. "You both look like you're trying to forget something." Kelsey laughed. "Aren't we all?" He smiled at her, but his eyes stayed on me. "What about you?" "You look like you could use a break from bad days." I shrugged. "You offering one?" He chuckled. "Maybe." We talked for an hour. His name was Reed Calloway. Said he worked in real estate development, which could mean anything. He was charming, careful with words, the kind of man who made silence feel intentional. When Kelsey went to the bathroom, he leaned closer. "You're different." "How so?" "You listen." I almost laughed. That's a low bar. He smiled again, and I noticed how his eyes didn't quite match the warmth in his voice. When he asked for my number, I gave it. I don't even know why. Maybe I was tired of saying no. Maybe part of me wanted to believe someone could fix things. He texted the next morning. "Reed, dinner tonight?" My treat. No expectations, just good food. I stared at the screen for a long time. No expectations was always a lie, right? But rent was due. My fridge was empty. So I said yes. He picked me up in a black car that looked too clean to belong on my street. He opened the door, said, "You look perfect," even though I'd only worn a cheap black dress and thrift store heels. Dinner was at some rooftop restaurant with string lights and people who didn't have to check prices before ordering. I tried to be casual, but I couldn't stop thinking how far this world was from mine. He asked questions, where I was from, what I studied, what I wanted. He didn't talk about himself much. When he did, it was vague. Investments, business trips, property. At the end, when the bill came, he covered it without blinking. Then he looked at me and said, "Let me help you out." I know what it's like starting over. I frowned. "Help me out how?" "Financially. I'd like to support you a bit. In exchange, we spend some time together. You decide how much there it was. The real offer." He said it like he was talking about weather. Casual, not sleazy. He slid a card across the table. "Just think about it." That night I told Kelsey. She squealed. "Girl, that's a sugar daddy. You hit the jackpot," I grimaced. "It feels weird." "Don't make it weird. Just use him. He gets company, you get cash. Win-win. I told myself I wouldn't. But a week later, when my landlord slid another final notice under my door, I texted him. At first it wasn't bad. He took me out to nice restaurants, gave me an allowance. He wasn't handsy, not at first. Just talk, drinks, dinners. He made me feel seen, in a way. One night he asked if I wanted to go with him to his lake house for the weekend. It's quiet out there, he said. No noise, no phones. Just you and me. I hesitated. No phones? He smiled. Signal's awful anyway. I like to disconnect, I said yes. The lake house was 2 hours out, surrounded by trees so thick the sunlight came through in stripes. It looked like something from a postcard. Big windows, wood deck, view of still black water. Inside was spotless, too spotless. Not a speck of dust, not a single photo. He poured me wine, put music on. For a while it was almost peaceful. Then he said, "You can leave your bag in the guest room." "There's a guest room?" He nodded. "Of course." "Unless you'd rather stay with me," I laughed nervously. "Guest room's fine." His smile flickered just a bit. "As you wish." That night I couldn't sleep. The house made strange noises, soft clicks and creaks, like it was breathing. Around midnight I got up to get water. The hallway light was off, but there was a glow from downstairs. Reed was sitting in the living room, staring at the fireplace that wasn't lit. His hands were clasped, elbows on his knees, like he was deep in thought. I whispered, "Can't sleep either?" He didn't look at me. "Do you believe people can change?" The question caught me off guard. "I think so." "Why?" He finally looked up. His eyes seemed off. Unfocused, maybe. "Most people can't. They pretend they can, but they always go back to what they were." He stood suddenly. "Go back to bed, sweetheart." I froze. The way he said it wasn't tender. It was final, like an order. I went. The next morning he was back to normal. Pancakes, coffee, small talk. He asked if I slept okay. I lied and said yes. After breakfast, I went for a walk along the lake. There were no boats, no neighbors, nothing but trees. I noticed something half buried near the edge of the dock, a woman's bracelet, gold but rusted. When I picked it up, it snapped in half like it had been there for years. I brought it inside. "Hey, Reed, did someone drop this?" He looked at it, then at me. "Probably from before I bought the place." "When was that?" He smiled thinly. "A long time ago." Then he took the bracelet and slipped it into his pocket. That evening, he suggested we watch a movie. Halfway through, he put his hand on my knee. I froze. He leaned in close. "You don't like it?" I just wasn't expecting." "Relax," he murmured. "You're safe here." Something about the way he said safe made my stomach twist. I excused myself, went upstairs. I texted Kelsey. "Me. Hey, something feels off." "He's acting weird, Kelsey." "You're fine, girl. Chill. Rich dudes are just awkward." I wanted to believe her. At 3 a.m., a noise woke me. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving down the hall toward my room. I sat up, heart racing. The doorknob turned once, quietly, then stopped. "Reed?" I whispered. No answer. After a long minute, I heard the steps retreat. I stayed awake till sunrise, gripping my phone even though there was no signal. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. Made breakfast again, humming to himself. When I asked if he'd been up late, he smiled. "I checked on you," he said. "You were having a nightmare." I wasn't asleep. He didn't blink. "You were." Then he walked away. That afternoon, I said I needed to head back early. He didn't argue, just smiled and said he'd drive me. Halfway down the road, he stopped for gas. While he was inside, I checked the glove box for a charger. Instead, I found a small velvet pouch. Inside was another bracelet, not gold this time, silver, engraved with a name. Marissa. When he came back, I shoved it back and tried to act normal, but my mind was racing. That night back home, I Googled Reed Calloway. No LinkedIn, no Facebook, no record of a real estate developer. But I did find a news story from 6 years ago. Local woman missing near Calloway Lake, last seen with older male companion. No arrests, no updates. The man's description fit him exactly. I tried to cut contact, stopped replying, blocked his number. 2 days later, flowers arrived at my door. No card, just a note. Don't ignore me, sweetheart. We're not done. My hands shook so bad I dropped it. Kelsey told me to call the cops. I did. They said they'd keep an eye out, but without proof of a crime, there wasn't much to do. The next week was a blur. I started seeing him everywhere. Parked cars that looked like his, reflections that didn't line up. One night I came home and found the door unlocked. Inside, everything looked the same except my bed. There was a single item placed neatly in the center, that same gold bracelet from the lake. I packed a bag and went to stay with Kelsey, but she worked nights and I couldn't sleep alone. Every creak made me jump. Around 2 a.m., I heard something outside the window, soft tapping. I froze. A whisper followed. My name. M. I turned off the light. The whisper came again, closer. Emily. Open the door. It was his voice. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, but before I could speak, the call dropped. When I looked back at the window, his face was there, smiling. I screamed. By the time cops arrived, he was gone. They found footprints leading into the woods, but nothing else. I moved out a week later. New number, new apartment, new job. I tried to forget. For a while I did. Then, last month, I got an email from an unknown sender. Subject line: dinner? The message was blank, except for one attachment. A photo. Me, sitting in my new apartment, eating takeout, taken through the window. Last night I came home late, lights off, quiet. On the counter sat a small box wrapped in red ribbon, no note. Inside, a phone. It rang the moment I touched it. I answered, hands shaking. Hello? Reed's voice soft and calm as ever. See? I told you we'd always find each other, sweetheart. The line went dead. The phone screen lit up with a photo, me asleep taken from above. I looked around, heart pounding. The air felt wrong, still. Then I saw it. Footprints. Wet ones, leading from my bedroom toward the door. But the door was still locked. I moved again. Changed my name. Stopped dating. Stopped trusting. It's been 3 years since that night at the bar. Sometimes I think I see him on the street, same walk, same coat. Sometimes I wake up and smell his cologne in the dark. And sometimes when my phone rings with no caller ID, I still hear him breathing on the other end. Quiet. Patient. Waiting. I didn't meet him online the way most girls do. It started with coffee. Back then I was 21, broke, and fresh out of community college. My mom had died the previous winter. Lung cancer. I was renting a tiny basement room outside Nashville, working double shifts at a diner called The Beacon. My life was just static. Early mornings, late nights, same old chatter about tips and overtime. He came in on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I almost didn't take that shift. The dishwasher had called out and my manager Trish begged me to cover. The place was half empty when he walked in. A man in his mid-50s, neatly dressed, pressed shirt, silver watch, clean hands. He looked like a lawyer or a preacher. He sat in my section. Coffee black, he said when I came over, voice soft but deep, like someone who didn't need to raise it to be heard. You got it, I said, writing it down even though it was simple. When I brought his mug, he smiled, polite but not warm. His eyes were this pale blue that didn't blink much. He didn't look at me the way most older men do. No smirk, no comment about my hair or uniform. He just asked, "How long have you worked here?" "Little over a year." He nodded like he was filing that away. "You handle yourself well." You don't see that much anymore. It sounded like a compliment, but also like a test. I laughed awkwardly. Guess that's what rent does to you. He smiled again. That's a wise answer. That was it. He left a 20 for a $7 bill. No number, no creepy comments. Just that. But then he came back, every Tuesday, always around 3 p.m. always coffee, black, always cash. He started asking more questions, small, innocent things, about my family, my studies, if I'd ever thought of moving somewhere quieter. I told him about my mom, about how the hospital bills wiped us out, how I was just trying to get by. He listened, really listened. That's what made it strange later, how calm it all seemed at first. One Tuesday, he said, "You shouldn't have to work this hard. You're young, you deserve some ease." I laughed. "Tell that to my landlord." He didn't laugh back, just reached into his wallet and placed 2 crisp hundreds on the table. "For what?" I asked, half joking. "For rent," he said simply. No strings attached. I froze. "That's really nice, but I can't." He tilted his head, eyes gentle. "You can. Think of it as a kindness. Call me an old-fashioned gentleman if you like." His tone wasn't pushy, just firm. I told him no, and he didn't insist. He just said, "I'll leave it here. If it bothers you, don't touch it." I didn't touch it. Not until closing, when I saw it still sitting there. That's how it started. He introduced himself as Richard Palmer. Said he worked in finance, used to live in D.C. before moving to Tennessee for peace. I didn't see the harm in talking to him. My coworkers teased me, calling him my sugar daddy, but he never crossed a line. He just listened, tipped well, and said things that made me feel seen. One afternoon, he asked if I wanted to join him for lunch, somewhere nicer, just to get away from greasy aprons and fluorescent lights. "I can't," I said. "Trish'll kill me." "I'll call and explain," he said, smiling. I laughed. "What are you, my lawyer?" "No," he said quietly. "Just someone who hates seeing good people stuck in bad routines." That line stuck with me. A week later, I said yes. He took me to a place called the Willow Room. White tablecloths, soft jazz, everything expensive but not flashy. He ordered for me, like he already knew what I liked. Grilled salmon, iced tea. "You have good manners," he said. "You were raised right." "Guess so," I said. "My mom made sure of it." He nodded. "She sounds like a strong woman." "She was," I said. Then, without meaning to, I added, "She didn't trust men much." He smiled faintly. A common mistake. Something about that answer made me pause. But he looked calm, almost gentle. After lunch, he said, "You remind me of someone. My daughter, maybe. She's grown now. Married. Out west. You have kids?" "Had," he corrected softly. "She doesn't speak to me anymore." "Why?" He looked out the window. "Sometimes love makes people cruel. They forget the sacrifices made for them." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. We started meeting regularly. Lunches, drives, coffee. He'd tell me about the old days, about how people used to have faith, discipline, order. Once he said, "You know what's wrong with this world? Everyone wants freedom but no structure. Freedom without order is rot." I nodded just to keep the conversation light, but he looked serious, almost emotional. He started giving me little gifts, a necklace, a coat, groceries. I tried to refuse, but he'd say, "It makes me happy to help." Then, one day, he offered something bigger. "I've got a place outside town," he said. "Quiet. Safe. You could stay there rent-free until you get on your feet. It's not charity, it's opportunity." I hesitated. "That's a lot, Richard." He smiled. "You don't have to decide now." "Just think about it." I did. For a week. Then my roommate announced she was moving out and rent doubled overnight. I panicked. When I told him, he said, "Then the timing's perfect." His house was an hour outside Nashville, past rolling hills and empty roads. The driveway wound up through trees and opened to a white 2-story farmhouse. The kind of place that felt like it had rules. When I got out of the car, I noticed how quiet it was. Not peaceful quiet, more like absent. No birds, no hum of life. Inside, everything was immaculate. Polished wood floors, framed Bible verses, not a speck of dust. He gave me a tour. "You'll stay in the guest room upstairs," he said. "I work from home, so I'll be around, but I keep to myself." The guest room was plain. A bed, a desk, a small cross above the door. He said, "There's just one rule. Don't go into the basement." "That's my workspace. It's not for visitors." I nodded. "Sure. I'm not nosy." He smiled. "Good. I value that." The first few nights were fine. He kept to himself, made breakfast every morning, always the same. Eggs, toast, black coffee. He prayed before eating, murmuring softly, almost whispering. But things started to feel off. Every night I'd hear him walking the hallway around 2 a.m. Slow, steady footsteps. Then silence near my door. The first time, I thought I imagined it. But it happened again. When I asked him about it, he said, "I like to make sure the house is secure. You can never be too careful." Then he added, "You shouldn't lock your door at night. It's a bad habit. Makes a house feel divided." I said I'd think about it. I didn't unlock it. Weeks passed. The tension built quietly, like humidity before a storm. He'd ask strange questions over breakfast. "Do you pray before bed? Do you think sin can be inherited? Do you think discipline is love?" I laughed them off, but his eyes never left mine. One afternoon I was folding laundry when I heard a low mechanical hum from downstairs, like a freezer. It was steady, constant. I remembered the basement rule and told myself to ignore it, but the sound kept nagging me. Then one day, while he was out running errands, curiosity got the better of me. The basement door was locked, heavy old wood, but the lock itself was shiny and new. When I pressed my ear to it, I heard not just the hum, but something else. A faint rhythm, like dripping. That night he came home later than usual. His clothes smelled faintly metallic. "You've been down the hall, haven't you?" he said suddenly. My stomach dropped. "What?" His voice stayed calm. "You touched the basement door." I just heard something. Thought maybe a pipe or something. He nodded slowly, then smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Curiosity is the first seed of disobedience. "You remember that I apologized," he said. "No harm done." But that night the footsteps were louder, longer. He stopped at my door and didn't move for almost a full minute. I held my breath until I heard him walk away. The next morning I woke to the smell of bleach. He was mopping the kitchen floor, humming a hymn. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just cleaning," he said. "You spilled something last night?" "No." He said. "Must have been me then." I noticed a dark stain under the rug near the fridge. He caught me looking and smiled faintly. "You don't need to worry about housework. That's my duty." That afternoon he left for town. I decided to look. I pulled back the rug. The stain was old, brown, irregular, not coffee, not wine. That night I couldn't sleep. The hum from below seemed louder than ever. At 1:43 a.m. there was a sound, metal clicking, then a faint creak. I got up and opened my door. The hallway was dark except for a strip of light spilling from under the basement door. I stood there, heart pounding, listening. Then something moved inside. A shadow, slow and deliberate. I whispered, "Richard?" No answer. Then, footsteps, coming up the basement stairs. I ran back to my room, locked the door, and pressed myself against it. The steps stopped right outside. Then came a whisper, almost like a prayer. "Cleanliness brings salvation." The doorknob turned once, twice, then silence. By morning he acted like nothing happened, made pancakes, offered me coffee. I told him I was thinking of leaving. He smiled, calm. "You're not ready yet. The world outside is diseased. You're safer here." "I'm not a child," I snapped. He tilted his head. "Neither were they." "Who?" He smiled again. "My family." They didn't listen either. That's when I noticed the pictures on the mantel, old black and white portraits of a woman and 3 children. Their eyes looked drained. He followed my gaze. They were beautiful once, before the world corrupted them. That night, I packed my bag quietly. My plan was simple: wait till he slept, sneak out, call a friend from town. At 2:10 a.m., I crept down the hallway. Halfway down, I heard the hum again. But this time, there was another sound. A faint thump, like something shifting inside the freezer. The basement door was slightly open. Light flickered from below. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe fear, maybe proof. But I pushed it open. The smell hit first. Chemical, sharp, metallic. Downstairs, the room was lined with plastic bins, labeled neatly. M. Palmer, E. Palmer, Grace Palmer. On the far table sat photos. Families posed stiffly, all with the same faint smile. Dozens of them. And a Bible. Underlined verse: "He who does not provide for his own has denied the faith." Then I saw my name on a manila folder. I opened it. Inside were my mother's letters, her handwriting, her warnings. She'd known him. She'd begged him to stay away. I whispered, "Oh my God." That's when I heard his voice behind me. "I told you that room wasn't for you." He stepped into the light. Calm, collected. "I wanted to believe you were different," he said. "But sin repeats itself, just like blood." "Stay away from me," I said. He smiled faintly. "You look like her. But you're stronger. Maybe I can still fix what I broke." He reached for something under the table, a leather strap, thick and stained. "I won't let the rot spread again," he said softly. I ran. He grabbed my arm, hard. I twisted, slammed the folder into his face, and bolted up the stairs. He shouted something, a prayer or a curse, I couldn't tell. I reached the front door, yanked it open, and sprinted into the night barefoot. I didn't stop running until I saw headlights on the main road. The police didn't believe much of it. They found the basement empty, the bins gone, the walls freshly painted. He disappeared. No record of him under Richard Palmer, no bank account, no driver's license. I moved to another city, changed my number. A year later, I saw his face again. On TV. Different name, different city. He'd been arrested in Ohio for the murders of his wife, 3 children, and mother, years before I ever met him. He'd vanished afterward, lived under new names, in new towns, charming strangers into trusting him. When I saw the mugshot, I stopped breathing. Same eyes, same voice, same calm smile. They said he justified it all with religion, that he'd saved his family from a sinful world. Sometimes I still hear the hum at night. Sometimes I dream he's still walking down the hallway, checking locks, whispering prayers. I wonder if I escaped him, or if he just decided I wasn't ready yet. I met him on a Wednesday. I still remember because it was one of those muggy early summer evenings when the sky turns orange and the air smells like rain that never comes. I was sitting in my car outside a laundromat, scrolling through my phone, waiting for my last load to dry. My apartment was about 2 miles away, but I liked doing laundry here because it stayed open late and was never crowded. That's when the message came in. "You're prettier than your pictures." At first I thought it was another scam bot. I'd made an account on a site called Sweet Match a few weeks earlier, half as a joke. My friend Brittany had told me she met a guy there who paid her bills and never asked for much. I wasn't looking for that exactly. Rent was tight, sure, and my car insurance was overdue, but I told myself I'd just talk, flirt, maybe, nothing serious. His profile name was Calvin R_54. His photo looked normal, gray hair, clean-shaven, glasses, wearing a navy suit in what looked like a hotel conference room, the kind of man who'd smile at you in line at Starbucks but not say anything else. I typed back, "You must need new glasses then." He replied almost instantly, "I like honest girls. Are you free to talk?" I didn't think much of it. I was bored, so I said sure. We started chatting. He told me he was a retired engineer from Pennsylvania, recently moved to North Carolina to start over. He said he'd been divorced for 6 years, had no kids, and spent his days fixing up an old property outside town. His tone was calm, old-fashioned even. He didn't flirt the way most guys on those sites did. "Most girls just want Venmo and disappear," he said once. "I'm looking for someone who will actually talk. Real companionship. Money's the easy part." It sounded harmless enough. We kept talking over the next few days. Nothing crazy. He'd ask about my job at the clinic, about my mom in Tennessee, about the little things I'd mention like my car acting up or the coffee place near my apartment that burned the muffins every morning. He seemed genuinely interested. Then, after a week, he said something that threw me off. "You remind me of my daughter." I froze for a second before replying. "You have a daughter?" "You said you didn't." He sent back, "Not anymore." I didn't know what to say. The typing dot stayed for a while, then disappeared. I told myself not to overthink it. People lose people all the time. Maybe she passed away. Maybe he didn't want to talk about it. That night, I deleted the app. But the next morning, there was a message waiting in my email inbox. Not from the app, from my personal Gmail. "It's me, Calvin. You disappeared. Don't do that again. I swear I never gave him my email." 2 days later, a package showed up at my door. No return address. Just my name, handwritten. Inside was a small velvet jewelry box and a note. "Every good girl deserves something nice. C." The box held a gold bracelet. Not cheap either. It was heavy, solid, with a little engraving on the inside that read SD. I thought it meant Sugar Daddy. Now I'm not so sure. I called Brittany that night. "He sent you what?" "A bracelet. I didn't even tell him my address. Girl, that's creepy as hell. Block him, I did." "He emailed me, then block his email too. You don't owe him shit," so I did. Blocked, reported, deleted everything. For a week nothing happened. Then one night after my shift at the clinic, I came home and found my apartment door slightly open. Just an inch. I thought maybe I hadn't latched it right. I pushed it open slowly, heart pounding. Nothing seemed out of place. Until I walked into the kitchen. There, sitting on the counter, was the bracelet. I had thrown it in the trash days ago. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every hum of the fridge sounded like footsteps. Around 2 a.m., I finally called the cops. A young officer showed up, polite but clearly thinking I was overreacting. He checked the apartment, wrote a report, and told me to get better locks. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. "You shouldn't have thrown it away," he said. "Who is this?" "You know who." "Calvin, leave me the hell alone or I'm calling the police." "You already did." "I saw the report. They didn't believe you." Click. That voice, calm, low, steady, like he was smiling through every word. I stayed with Brittany for a few nights after that. Her apartment was smaller, but it felt safer somehow, like noise kept him away. We even joked about it to calm ourselves down. Maybe he's just some old dude with too much time. Or a ghost sugar daddy. Yeah, haunting Venmo transactions from the afterlife. We laughed. It helped for a while. Then one night while we were watching TV, my phone buzzed again. Another text. "You don't have to hide, sweetheart. I know where you sleep." Brittany grabbed the phone, furious. "We're going to the cops again." But before she could, the power went out. Total blackness. A second later, there was a knock on the door. Not pounding. Just a soft, rhythmic knock. Brittany whispered, "Don't move." The knocking stopped. Then we heard a man's voice from the other side. "Open the door, baby." "You left your bracelet," I wanted to scream. Brittany reached for her phone, but her hands were shaking too much. The voice got quieter, almost a whisper pressed against the wood. "You don't have to be scared." I'm not mad, just disappointed. Then nothing. We waited a full 10 minutes before Brittany dared peek through the peephole. "Nobody's there," she whispered. We turned every light on once the power came back. Outside, near the curb, a single car idled for a moment before pulling away. A black Lincoln. No plates. After that night, I moved out. Brittany helped me pack everything I owned into her boyfriend's truck. We found a new place across town, cheaper but further from work. I changed my number, deleted all social media, and started fresh. For a few months, things were quiet. I almost convinced myself it was over. Until December. I was closing up the clinic one night. The last patient had left, the lights were dimmed, and I was finishing paperwork when I heard the chime from the front door. We were closed. Sorry, I looked up. An older man stood in the doorway, gray hair, glasses, navy jacket. His smile was small but wrong, like he'd been practicing it. Calvin? He nodded. It's good to see you again, sweetheart. I froze. My throat went dry. You can't be here. I drove a long way to see you. You didn't answer my messages. I hit the panic button under the counter, praying the alarm worked. He kept talking, calm, slow. I don't understand why you hide. I took care of everything for you. Even found your new place. You moved, remember? Same couch, though. How do you? He took a step forward. Because I watch out for you. That's what fathers do. Something inside me snapped. You're not my father. He smiled wider. Aren't I? Before I could react, the lights flickered, all of them, every bulb in the clinic buzzing like static. I could hear the faint hum in my ears, sharp and high-pitched. Then, everything went dark. The air got cold. Not draft cold, dead cold. When the backup lights kicked in, Calvin was gone. Just the bracelet sitting on the counter again. Only this time the engraving had changed. Daddy's home. I quit that job the next day, moved again. New city. I thought distance would help, but it didn't matter. The messages kept finding me. New numbers, new emails. Sometimes they weren't even messages, just sounds. A low hum through the phone at night, or a voicemail with breathing and a faint whisper of my name. Once I woke up and found muddy footprints inside my apartment, leading from the front door to the bed. They stopped right beside me. I called the cops again. They checked the door. No forced entry. The officer looked at me the way people look at someone they don't believe but don't want to say it out loud. You should maybe talk to someone, he said. Like a counselor. I almost laughed. 3 months passed before anything major happened again. I met a guy named Tyler. Nice, normal, worked in IT. We dated a while. He knew about Calvin, kind of. Not everything. Just that I had a stalker once. One night, after dinner, we went back to my place. Things were good, easy. I almost forgot to be scared. Then, around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Tyler grabbed it off the nightstand. You want me to answer? Before I could say no, he did. Hello? He frowned. Who is this? Then his face went pale. He handed me the phone slowly. A voice on the other end whispered, You can do better than him. Tyler hung up. He laughed nervously. Weird prank call, huh? But he didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. 2 days later, Tyler didn't show up to work. His roommate found his car still running in the driveway. Inside, on the passenger seat, was the gold bracelet. I told the police everything. Again. They searched for Calvin, found no record of anyone with that name matching his description. No fingerprints, no paper trail. Even the sweet match profile was gone, like it never existed. The detective asked if I was sure it wasn't someone I knew pretending. I said no. I'd seen him, heard him. He wrote something in his notebook, looked at me carefully and said, Sometimes trauma plays tricks on us. If you'd like, I can recommend someone to talk to. I didn't bother arguing. It's been 2 years now. I moved again, small town in Ohio, changed my name legally. No more social media, no dating apps, no anything. Just work, groceries, and home. But sometimes, I still hear it. Not every night. not even every week. But every few months, just as I'm starting to believe it's finally over, I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and hear the faintest whisper from the hallway. "You don't have to hide, sweetheart." Last week, I found a new bracelet in my mailbox. No return address. This one wasn't gold, it was leather. Burned into the inside was a new engraving: "Obey." I burned it that night, watched the flames until it turned to ash. Then I smelled it again, that same scent from years ago. Mold, sweat, something rotten. I looked at the window. He was standing outside in the rain, smiling. Older now, or maybe just deader. I froze. My phone was on the counter, but I couldn't move. He lifted his hand, pointed at the front door, then to his chest. Then he mouthed it, slowly. "Daddy's home." The lights flickered, and for the first time since that laundromat, I realized he never really wanted money. He wanted control. He wanted me. I'm writing this from my car right now, parked 3 towns away, engine running, keys shaking in my hand. I can't go home. I don't have anywhere to go. But I can still hear it, faint, under the rain. The hum, the whisper. "Good girl." I never thought I'd be the kind of girl who downloaded one of those sugar daddy apps. But rent was due. My hours got cut again at the diner, and I was tired of living off ramen noodles and cold brew coffee. I'd been sharing a 2-bedroom apartment in Glendale, Arizona, with my roommate Jess for almost a year. We were both 26, both broke, and both stuck in that endless loop of, "we'll figure it out next month." One night after a double shift, I came home with my feet aching and saw Jess sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket, watching some true crime show. "Girl, you look like death," she said, laughing. "I feel like death," I muttered, tossing my apron on the floor. She paused the show. "You know what you need? A rich old man to take care of you." I rolled my eyes. "What, like a sugar daddy?" "Exactly like that." She grinned. "No shame in the game. These guys just want someone to talk to. Sometimes dinner, sometimes more, depends on what you want. My friend Lexi's been doing it for months. Says it's easy money." I laughed it off. But that night, lying in bed staring at my cracked phone screen, I actually looked it up. The app was called Lux Date. The tagline read, "Where generosity meets connection." I don't know why I did it. Curiosity? Desperation? Maybe both. I made a profile, uploaded a few photos, nothing too revealing, and wrote that I was looking for someone mature who enjoys good conversation and coffee. Within a day, I had messages. Most were creepy, some were outright disgusting, but one stood out. His name was Henry Tate. His profile picture showed a man in his late 40s, maybe early 50s, with salt and pepper hair, a neat beard, and kind eyes. He wore a gray suit, sitting at an outdoor cafe with a cup of espresso. His message was simple. "Hi, Emma. I like your honesty. You seem genuine. Would love to take you out for dinner sometime, just to talk. No pressure." I didn't reply for a few hours, but I kept going back to read it. Finally, I said, "Hi, Henry. Dinner sounds nice. I work a lot, but maybe Friday?" He replied almost instantly, "Friday it is. I'll make a reservation. Do you like Italian?" Friday came faster than I expected. I almost canceled 3 times. But when I met him at a little Italian place in Scottsdale, he was surprisingly normal. Charming, even. He stood up when I walked in, smiled warmly, and said, "You must be Emma. You look even better in person." He was polite, attentive, the kind of man who actually listened when you spoke. He told me he worked in real estate development, traveled a lot for business, and had recently gone through a lonely divorce. "I'm not looking for anything complicated," he said over dinner. "Just companionship. Someone to talk to, someone who appreciates honesty." He paid for everything, easily a $200 meal, and handed me an envelope before I left. "Just for your time," he said softly. Inside was $400. I was stunned. When I got home, Jess was waiting on the couch like a gossip journalist. So, how was it? He was actually nice, I admitted. Polite, didn't even try anything weird. And he gave me $400. She nearly choked. What the hell? Girl, you're in the wrong career, I laughed, but there was something in the back of my mind. A little voice saying it was too good to be true. Over the next month, I saw Henry 3 more times. Dinner, drinks, one short trip to a winery outside Phoenix. Each time, he was a gentleman. He'd ask about my day, listen to me vent about work, and sometimes just talk about books and music. He told me about growing up in Vermont, about his late father who taught him how to handle people. When I asked what that meant, he just smiled. Let's just say he was good at reading folks. Knew what they wanted before they said it. I laughed it off, but it felt odd. Then little things started to happen. One night I came home from work and found a small bouquet of white roses on my doorstep. No note. But when I texted Henry, jokingly asking if he was the secret admirer, he replied almost instantly, "Maybe." You deserve to come home to something beautiful. I hadn't told him my exact address, just the general area. When I asked how he knew, he sent a wink emoji. Creepy or sweet? Jess asked when I told her. I'm not sure, I admitted. A week later, I woke up to a soft ping from my phone. It was a text from Henry. "Morning, Emma. That blue hoodie looks good on you." I froze. I was literally wearing my blue hoodie right then. Messy bun, no makeup, sitting in my kitchen eating cereal. I replied, "Are you outside my apartment?" No answer. I went to the window and looked out through the blinds. No cars I recognized, no one outside. Maybe it was a guess. Maybe he remembered me wearing it last time. But the next text made my blood run cold. "Don't be scared. I just wanted to make sure you got home safe last night." That's when I called Jess. "He's watching me," I said, pacing. "I swear to God he's watching me." She told me to block him. I did. But the texts kept coming, from different numbers, all saying things like, "You shouldn't ignore me. I'm just looking out for you." "We have a connection, Emma." I changed my number. I even quit Luckstate. But he didn't stop. 3 nights later, I came home after my shift and noticed something was off. The lights inside the apartment were dimmer than usual. Jess wasn't home yet. When I locked the door behind me, I noticed a faint smell, like expensive cologne. Henry's cologne. My heart dropped. I tiptoed toward the living room, clutching my phone, ready to call 911. The air felt heavy, like someone was holding their breath nearby. "Jess?" I whispered. No answer. I checked the kitchen. Empty. Then the bathroom. Nothing. When I reached my bedroom door, I noticed it was slightly open. My gut screamed, "Don't go in there." But I did. The first thing I saw was my vanity mirror, and something carved into the wood frame above it, sweet like sin. I froze. I didn't hear him until it was too late. A soft shuffle behind me, then a hand clamped over my mouth. "Shh," a voice whispered in my ear. Calm. Familiar. "You shouldn't have blocked me." I thrashed, clawing at his arm. His grip tightened. I smelled the same cologne, the same warmth of his breath. "Henry." He whispered, "You made me feel something, Emma." "Don't ruin that." I stomped on his foot, hard, and managed to slip free for a second. I ran straight into the hall, screaming Jess's name, fumbling for the door lock. He grabbed me again, this time dragging me backward toward the bedroom. "Stop fighting," he hissed. "You don't get it." "I moved here for you," I kicked, screamed, clawed his face. Anything I could do. I hit him with the lamp from the side table and bolted out the door barefoot, sprinting into the parking lot. I banged on the neighbor's door until someone opened it. "Call the cops," I yelled. "He's in my apartment." When the police arrived, Henry was gone. Every drawer in my room was opened. He'd gone through my clothes, my makeup, my old journals. They found photos of me on his phone, some clearly taken from outside my window. Turns out he wasn't even divorced. He wasn't even named Henry Tate. His real name was Brian Keller, and he'd been investigated in 2 other states for stalking women he met online. One had gone missing. I moved out 2 weeks later. Jess and I broke the lease and never looked back. Some nights I still wake up around 3 a.m. convinced someone's in the room. Sometimes I think I smell that cologne. Sharp, woody, expensive. The police said he's in custody awaiting trial. But every time my phone lights up at night, every time I catch a reflection in the window, I still get that same gut-deep fear. Like he's still watching. Like he never left. And sometimes, when I walk past a flower shop or a restaurant, I swear I catch a glimpse of him. Older, colder, wearing that same soft smile. The one that looked harmless. The one that fooled me. The one that said, "Sweet like sin." I was 26 when I first moved to Elmswood, a quiet town right on the edge of the city. It wasn't far from downtown, but it might as well have been a different world. Rows of modest homes, big yards, trees that looked like they'd been standing there since forever. The streets were still, the air clean, and the nights were the kind of quiet that made you hear your own thoughts a little too clearly. I'd just gotten out of a long, emotionally draining relationship. 3 years down the drain, with someone who left me with nothing but rent payments and a lingering sense that I'd wasted my best years. My mom used to say, sometimes you gotta start over where nobody knows your name. So that's what I did. New town, new house, new start. Except I was broke. Between bills, student loans, and trying to fix up the little house I'd bought, I was living paycheck to paycheck. That's when I made the stupid decision to sign up for Sugar Connect. It wasn't exactly something I bragged about. A few of my coworkers had joked about it once, saying you could get paid for just having dinner. I thought it was probably shady, but curiosity got the better of me. I made a profile. Just Mara, 26, new to town, likes coffee and quiet nights. I didn't even put a last name. Within a day, I got a message from someone named Roy. His profile said he was 52, a business consultant from the area. His message was short and polite. "Hi, Mara. I live not far from Elmswood. You seem sweet. Would you like to meet for dinner sometime this week?" Something about the tone, calm, respectful, not pushy, made me feel like he wasn't some creep. His picture showed a tall man with graying brown hair, wearing a simple flannel shirt. He didn't look rich or flashy, which honestly made him feel safer. We exchanged messages for a couple of days. He told me he'd been married once, had no kids, and mostly kept to himself. He said he wasn't looking for anything dramatic, just company. I told him I'd recently moved and didn't know anyone yet. He said, "Well, that's perfect then. I know how lonely Elmswood can get." That line stuck with me. He knew what kind of quiet I was talking about. We agreed to meet at a local diner called Maple and Main. It was a well-lit place near the gas station, open late, mostly truckers and locals. I showed up around 6:30, nervous as hell, second-guessing every decision that brought me there. Roy was already sitting in a corner booth when I walked in. He stood up, smiled, and shook my hand. "Hey, you must be Mara," he said warmly. "You look even prettier than your picture." He didn't sound fake, just soft-spoken, a little shy. "Thanks," I said. "You're right on time." "Old habit," he chuckled. "Army drilled that into me years ago." He didn't seem dangerous, just alone. We ordered burgers and talked about small things. The weather, the slow pace of the town, the best coffee around. When the check came, he refused to let me touch it. "Not tonight. I invited you." Before I left, he asked, "Would you want to come by for dinner sometime this week? I make a mean roast chicken." I hesitated, but his tone wasn't flirty. It was friendly, almost fatherly. I agreed. His house was a few blocks from mine, tucked behind tall trees. He texted me the address and said, "Friday at 7. I'll cook." Friday night came faster than I wanted. The air was cool, the streetlights dim. As I walked up to his house, I noticed how quiet it was. Not unusual for Elmswood, but there was something about the stillness that pressed against me. The porch light flickered. The front door was slightly ajar. I knocked anyway. "Come in, Mara," he called from inside, voice echoing like the place was empty. When I stepped in, I noticed right away no smell of food, no sound of cooking, just the hum of a fridge and the faint ticking of a clock. The living room looked too clean, bare walls, old furniture, not a single photo of family or friends. "Roy," I called. "Kitchen," he answered. I followed the voice. The kitchen was dark, except for one small lamp on the counter. There was no dinner, no table set, just empty space. My stomach tightened. "Where's your famous roast chicken?" I joked weakly. He laughed, but it didn't sound the same. Deeper, slower. "Changed my mind," he said from somewhere behind me. "Thought we could just talk instead." I turned around. He was standing in the doorway, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on me. Something about him looked off. The warmth from the diner was gone. Sure," I said, backing up a little. "Maybe we could grab coffee somewhere instead. I didn't realize you weren't cooking." "Nah," he said softly. "No need to go anywhere. It's quiet here. Nobody bothers us." That last part made my throat dry. I forced a small laugh. I actually should head out soon. My friend's waiting for me. He smiled too wide this time. "You told me you don't know anyone here, remember?" My heart sank. He remembered. I tried to stay calm. "Right, but I've met a few people since then." He didn't move, just watched me. "You seem nervous," he said. "You don't have to be." I glanced toward the front door, but it was closed now. I didn't hear it shut. "Roy," I said carefully, "I think I'm gonna go." He took a step closer. "Don't you trust me, Mara? I told you, I just wanted company." "Yeah, but..." He cut me off. "You know what I hate about that website?" he said, voice trembling slightly. "People pretend they're looking for connection, but all they want is money. I wanted something real." The way he said real made my blood run cold. I stepped sideways toward the hall. "Roy, listen, I didn't mean..." He moved faster than I expected, blocking my path. His expression changed, eyes wide, mouth twitching like he was struggling to keep calm. "Please," he said, almost whispering. "Just stay a while." My hand brushed against the kitchen counter. There was a keychain, his car keys, maybe. I grabbed them and shoved him hard enough to make him stumble. I ran. He shouted my name, voice deep and distorted. "Mara." The front door was locked. I fumbled with the deadbolt as his footsteps pounded behind me. I got it open just in time, sprinting barefoot down the street. I didn't look back. When I finally got home, I locked every door and called the cops. They arrived within 15 minutes, but Roy's house was empty. Empty like no one had lived there in months. The officer checked the property records and came back with a strange look. "Ma'am," he said, "the house has been vacant for nearly a year. The owner died last November." I froze. "No, that's not possible. I was just there. He invited me, but there was nothing. No furniture except what looked like old junk left behind. They found a mattress in the basement, some half-eaten food, and a few women's purses. Not mine, others. The cops said it looked like someone had been squatting there, maybe using fake names. Roy's real name was Gary Henson, a drifter wanted for assault in 3 different states. He disappeared before they could catch him. I moved out of Elmswood a month later. Deleted every dating app. Blocked every unknown number. Sometimes, I still get emails from accounts with no profile pictures, saying things like, "You still in town, sweetheart?" Or, "I can make dinner this time." I don't reply. I just delete them and pray that somewhere, someone catches him before he finds another girl looking for connection in all the wrong places. I always thought moving to a new city in your late 20s was supposed to be exciting. A fresh start, new faces, new routines, a clean slate, and for a while it was. I had just landed a new marketing job in Portland, Oregon, and though the pay wasn't great, the sense of independence was everything I'd wanted after my breakup with Nate. We'd been together for nearly 5 years, and when it ended ugly, yelling. Tears, police knocking on the door because the neighbors heard us. He didn't hit me, but he broke a lamp, threw a chair, said things that burned into my mind long after he left. So when I finally packed my things and drove my rusty Honda to Portland, I swore I was done with relationships for a long, long time. My new apartment wasn't much, one bedroom on the third floor of a small brown brick building. 6 units total, with a creaky staircase that echoed with every step, but it was mine. I remember that first night clearly, sitting cross-legged on the floor with takeout Chinese, cardboard boxes around me, watching the rain streak down the window and thinking, I did it. I actually started over. For the first few weeks, everything was quiet. I made friends with a few coworkers, mostly through coffee breaks and after-work drinks, but between the long work hours and my low energy, my social life was basically non-existent. I didn't mind, though. I liked coming home, slipping into pajamas, scrolling through my phone in bed until I drifted off. That's actually where it all started, on my phone. It was late, maybe close to midnight, and I was lying in bed with the glow of my screen lighting up the room. I had downloaded this sugar dating app a few weeks earlier, mostly out of curiosity. My coworker Rachel wouldn't stop talking about how easy it was to find someone generous enough to pay your rent if you just played nice. I wasn't planning on actually meeting anyone, I told myself. But that night, I matched with someone named Eric D. His profile photo was surprisingly normal, a guy in his 40s with salt and pepper hair. Clean cut, wearing a collared shirt in some nice restaurant. The bio said, professional investor, new to the area, looking for good company. I'll make it worth your time. It was cliché, sure, but harmless. We started chatting. He didn't come off like most men on that app. No gross pickup lines, no demands. Just casual questions: where I was from, what I did for work, what I liked about the city. He said he traveled a lot for business, that he'd been divorced for a few years. His tone was calm, mature, comforting even. I found myself replying more than I meant to. At one point he sent, Eric, you seem grounded. Not like the others on here. I like that. Me, I'm not really sure what I'm doing on here, tbh lol. Eric, that's okay, I'm not either. Sometimes you just want a connection, right? That line hit something deep in me, because that's exactly what I wanted. Not the money, not even the attention, just someone who looked at me and actually saw me. By the end of the week, we were messaging daily. He started calling me sweetheart and kiddo, which would normally annoy me. But with him, it weirdly didn't. He said he wanted to take me out, a simple dinner, nothing fancy, just to meet in person. I almost said no, but loneliness does weird things to you. We met the following Friday at a quiet Italian place downtown. I got there early, too nervous to eat. When he walked in, I recognized him immediately. Tall, a little gray around the temples, wearing a dark coat that looked expensive. He smiled when he saw me, and his presence filled the room in that way certain men's do. Lila? He said, his voice smooth but deep. That's me, I replied, standing awkwardly. He pulled my chair out before sitting across from me. You're even prettier than your pictures. I smiled, flustered. Thanks. You're not too bad yourself. The conversation flowed easily. He was charming without being pushy, confident but not arrogant. I learned he owned a few rental properties, worked in investments, and split his time between Portland and Seattle. He asked about my work, my move, my ex, which surprised me. I didn't usually share personal stuff, but something about his calm expression made me feel safe doing it. By the time dessert came, he reached across the table and said, I really like talking to you, Lila. I think we could help each other out. That line, help each other out, was the sugar dating code. But the way he said it made it sound less like a transaction and more like an offer. We didn't do anything that night beyond a long hug goodbye. But he texted me as soon as I got home. Made it home safe, sweetheart? I replied, yeah, thanks for dinner. Had a good time. He wrote back, good. You deserve good things. Sleep tight. I stared at that message longer than I'd admit. Over the next few weeks, we kept seeing each other. Once for dinner, once for coffee, once at his condo in the Pearl District. He said it was one of his investments, but it looked like someone lived there perfectly clean. Minimal furniture, a faint smell of cedar and cologne. He always gave me something after we met, an envelope with a few $100s, or sometimes a small gift like perfume or jewelry. I told myself it was just a nice gesture, but deep down, I knew what it was. Still, I didn't feel used. If anything, I felt seen again, wanted, until things started to change. It was a small thing at first. He began asking more questions. When do you usually get off work? What time do you go to bed? Who lives near you? I'd laugh them off, saying he was being overprotective, but his tone started to shift colder, more direct. One evening, he called while I was at home watching TV. "Hey," I said, "you're calling late." "I was just thinking about you," he replied. "That's sweet. Are you alone right now?" I hesitated. "Yeah, why?" "Good. Keep the door locked tonight." I laughed nervously. "Why, what's going on?" He paused. "Nothing. Just do it." Then he hung up. That was the first night I had trouble sleeping. The next day he didn't text at all, nor the day after that. It was like he vanished. No messages, no calls. When I finally texted, "You okay?" it didn't deliver. I assumed he blocked me. It stung, but I tried to shrug it off. People ghost all the time. But about a week later, I started noticing weird things around my apartment. My doormat had been moved slightly. My key felt loose in the lock one evening. And twice, I came home to find the hallway light outside my door flickering even though the rest of the lights in the building were fine. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Until one morning, there was a knock at my door at 6 a.m. I dragged myself out of bed, groggy and irritated, thinking it might be a package or maintenance. But when I looked through the peephole, my heart skipped. It was Eric. He looked the same as always, calm, well-dressed. A faint smile on his face. Except this time, he wasn't holding flowers or coffee. His hands were empty. I opened the door just an inch. "Eric, what are you doing here?" "Good morning, sweetheart," he said softly. "I was in the area. Thought I'd surprise you." "At 6 in the morning?" I said, half laughing. "You scared me." He tilted his head slightly. "You didn't answer my messages." I was worried. "I didn't get any," I said, frowning. "You blocked me, remember?" His smile faded for a moment. Then it came back, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. Must have been a glitch. I told him I had to get ready for work, but he didn't move, just stood there, staring at me with that same unreadable look. Then he said, "You should come by my condo tonight. We'll talk." "I can't tonight," I said quickly. "I've got stuff to do." Without replying, he turned and walked down the hall, his footsteps slow and deliberate. I stood there frozen for a long time before locking the door and leaning against it, heart hammering. That night, I made sure the door was locked twice, windows shut, curtains drawn. I tried to watch something funny to calm down, but every small sound made me jump. Around midnight, I finally drifted off. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. It was an unknown number. Half asleep, I answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then, faint breathing. "Eric," I said quietly. The line clicked off. I didn't sleep after that. The next day, I told Rachel at work what happened. She frowned and said, "Girl, you need to block him for real and maybe file a report." That's messed up. I promised I would. But when I got home that evening, there was a note under my door. It was handwritten. "You said you'd come by tonight." I waited. "Don't lie to me again." My knees nearly gave out. The handwriting was neat, almost elegant. I immediately called the building manager, an older woman named Mrs. Larkin, and told her I thought someone had been inside my floor. She promised to check the security footage. The next morning she called me back. "Honey, there's nothing on the camera from last night except you leaving and coming home. Nobody else came up the stairs." That's when I realized he somehow had a key. That night, I pushed a chair under my doorknob, left the lamp on, and stayed awake watching the door. Nothing happened, but around 5 a.m., I heard soft footsteps outside in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, one after another, right up to my door. Then silence. I held my breath, every nerve in my body on edge. A minute passed, then another, then a soft tap, tap, tap on the door. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. After maybe a minute, the sound stopped. I waited another 10 before getting up and peeking through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I was shaking when I finally backed away. The next day, I took the day off and stayed with Rachel. I told her everything, and she convinced me to go to the police. The officer I talked to was polite but dismissive, said since there was no break-in, they couldn't do much. So I changed the locks, called a handyman to install a second deadbolt, and told myself it was over. For a few days, things went back to normal. No notes, no knocks. I started to relax again, until Friday night. I got home late, around 9:30. The parking lot was empty and quiet. When I reached my floor, the lights were off again, every single one. I took my phone out and turned on the flashlight. My door was slightly ajar. My heart stopped. I froze in place, my brain screaming, no, no, no. This can't be happening again. I wanted to run back down the stairs, but a part of me needed to know. I pushed the door open slowly. The air inside felt wrong, heavy. The lamp in the living room was shattered. My couch cushions were torn. My kitchen drawers were open, and one knife was missing. Then I heard it, a soft, deliberate whisper from the bedroom. "Sweetheart." I bolted for the door, but before I could reach it, it slammed shut with a force that shook the frame. I spun around. Eric was standing in the hallway, between me and the only exit. He looked different, wild-eyed, pale, sweat dripping down his temple. He still had that faint, eerie half-smile. "You shouldn't have lied to me," he said quietly. "You said you liked me. I believed you." "Eric, please," I said, backing up toward the kitchen. "You need to leave. You're sick." "I took care of everything for you," he interrupted, voice trembling. "You don't have to work anymore. I'll protect you." I reached the counter and grabbed the first thing I could, a mug. "I'm calling the cops," I said. He laughed softly. "You already did once." "Didn't help, did it?" Then he lifted the missing kitchen knife. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. He stepped closer. "Just let me in, sweetheart. Let me in for real this time." Something in me snapped. I threw the mug as hard as I could. It hit him square in the chest, making him stumble. I sprinted past him, slamming into the door, fumbling for the lock. It wouldn't move, it was jammed. He grabbed my arm, yanking me back. I screamed, twisting free just long enough to grab the pepper spray from my purse and spray it directly in his face. He roared in pain, dropping the knife. I kicked it away and shoved him with everything I had. He fell hard, hitting his head on the counter. I didn't wait to see if he got up. I bolted out into the hallway, barefoot, pounding down the stairs until I reached the parking lot. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. They searched for days. Turns out, the name Eric D. was fake. The condo he took me to wasn't his, it was rented under another woman's name. The business he claimed to run didn't exist. The police found his fingerprints all over my apartment, though. They said he'd been using a master key, likely stolen from the building's previous owner. He'd been watching me for weeks before I ever matched with him. They never found him. It's been over a year now. I moved again, new city, new job, new locks. But some nights, I still wake up around 2:30 a.m., convinced I hear breathing on the other end of the phone. And sometimes, when I check my door before bed, there's a small white envelope on the floor. Empty. Just his way of saying he's still around. I was 26 when I first met him. It's strange how normal everything felt at the start, how something that would later define one of the darkest periods of my life began with nothing more than a few friendly messages on a screen. Back then, I lived in a small apartment just outside Cleveland. It wasn't fancy beige carpet, off-white walls, a rattling AC that sometimes smelled like burnt dust when it kicked on, but it was mine. And after years of bouncing between college roommates and a sketchy sublet, that felt like something. Money was tight. I worked the evening shift at a local cafe called Grounded Grace. The kind of place that charged $6 for a latte with oat milk and lavender syrup. The customers were mostly college kids or freelancers who thought they were too cool for Starbucks. I didn't mind it was easy work, and my boss, Renee, was nice enough to let me take leftovers home at the end of the night. Still, between rent, gas, and my student loan payments, I was scraping by. I'd joke with my friend Lauren about getting a sugar daddy whenever we were broke and laughing over cheap wine. But it was always just that, a joke. Until one night, it wasn't. It was a slow Tuesday, and I'd just gotten off my shift. I was scrolling through Instagram when an ad popped up for a site called Date Comfort. It wasn't one of those blatant sugar dating platforms. It looked more like a legitimate dating site for established men and ambitious women. I remember actually saying out loud, "Yeah, right," and almost swiping away, but something about it caught me. Curiosity mixed with exhaustion is a dangerous combination. So I made a profile. Nothing too wild, a couple of selfies, my age, that I worked at a coffee shop, that I liked hiking and old movies. Within an hour, I had messages. Most were exactly what you'd expect. "Hey gorgeous, looking for fun tonight," or flat-out offers that made me roll my eyes. But then there was Andrew. His profile picture looked like it belonged in a real estate brochure, early 40s, short brown hair graying at the temples, expensive-looking watch, and a polite smile. His bio said, "Investor, widowed, looking for company and conversation." No drama. He messaged me first. "Andrew, you have a kind face. Reminds me of someone I used to know." It was simple, almost sweet. I hesitated before replying, then just said, "Me." Hopefully in a good way. "Andrew, definitely. You seem genuine, that's rare here." We chatted a little that night. He told me he worked in property development and that he traveled a lot for work. He said he wasn't looking for anything crazy, just companionship, someone to spend time with when he was in town. It sounded harmless. By the end of the week, he offered to meet for coffee. I told Lauren, half expecting her to talk me out of it, but instead she said, "Girl, if he's rich and not creepy, why not? Just meet in public. Maybe he'll pay off your student loans." We laughed, but deep down, I was nervous and curious. We met at Harbor House Cafe, the kind of upscale place with marble countertops and little glass jars of sugar cubes. He was exactly like his picture, which somehow made me more anxious. Most guys online looked a little worse in person. He didn't. He stood when I walked in, smiled, and said, "You must be Emily." I remember his voice being calm, deliberate, the kind of tone people use when they're used to being listened to. Our conversation was easy. He asked questions, real ones, not the surface-level kind. He wanted to know about my family, where I grew up, what my goals were. He told me about losing his wife 3 years earlier, how they never had kids, how the house felt too big and too quiet now. When I told him about struggling to pay my loans, he said softly, "Money should never make someone like you feel small." There was something about the way he said it, not flirty, not pitying, that made me feel seen. At the end of the date, he said, "Let me take you to dinner next week. A real dinner. My treat." I said yes. That was how it started. Over the next few weeks, we went to nice restaurants, places I could never afford on my own. He always insisted on paying, and he was never pushy. He didn't even try to kiss me until our third dinner, and even then, it was just a brief, careful moment outside my car. He made me feel safe. He started sending me money, but it never felt transactional at first. He'd say things like, "You work too hard, sweetheart. Let me take care of that bill for you." And when I'd protest, he'd laugh and say, "Don't be stubborn. I like doing it." Before long, he was paying my rent as a gift. He'd send me cash for groceries, and sometimes he'd surprise me with things: a designer bag, a new phone. I told myself it was fine, that he was just generous, that I wasn't selling myself, that it wasn't what it looked like. But deep down, I knew I was getting in too deep. One night, about 2 months in, I stayed over at his house for the first time. It was on the outskirts of town, near an old golf course. The house was massive, like movie-level massive. Polished floors, huge windows, expensive artwork I couldn't name. It felt sterile, like no one actually lived there. He cooked dinner, pasta, and wine, and we watched a movie in his living room. At some point, I dozed off, and when I woke up, he was sitting in a chair across from the couch, just watching me. "Hey," I said groggily, "you okay?" He smiled a little too slowly. "You talk in your sleep." "I do." I laughed nervously. "What'd I say?" "Something about your brother," he said. "You were asking him to stop. Who's your brother?" It sent a weird chill down my spine. Josh. He's in Oregon." "Why?" He didn't answer right away, just said, "I like that you're close to your family." Then he kissed my forehead and turned off the lights. I told myself it was nothing. But something about the way he said it stuck with me. A week later, he started getting possessive. If I didn't reply to a text within a few hours, he'd send messages like, "Andrew, busy night? Or just forgot about me? Andrew, you know, it worries me when I don't hear from you." It wasn't constant, just enough to make me anxious. One night, when I told him I couldn't see him because I was covering someone's shift, he showed up at the cafe. I didn't even know he knew where I worked. He waited at a corner table the entire time, just sipping coffee and watching me. When my shift ended, he said, "I wanted to surprise you." I forced a smile. "You did." He reached for my hand, his grip firm. "I don't like it when you hide things from me." "I'm not hiding anything." "Then why didn't you tell me where you worked?" I laughed awkwardly. It just never came up. He didn't say anything else, just nodded, paid his bill, and walked me to my car in silence. That night, I lay in bed replaying the whole interaction, my stomach in knots. Things escalated slowly after that, like a temperature rising so gradually you don't realize you're burning until it's too late. He started calling every night. If I didn't pick up, he'd leave long voicemails, his tone switching from tender to cold mid-sentence. Then small things began disappearing from my apartment: a mug, a framed photo of me and Lauren, a sweater. I thought I was losing my mind until one night when I came home to find a small box on my kitchen counter. Inside were those exact items. There was a note. "You shouldn't leave your door unlocked, sweetheart. Someone could hurt you." Luckily, it was just me. My hands shook so hard I could barely hold the paper. I called Lauren, panicking, but she told me to go to the police. I didn't. I was terrified, but also ashamed because deep down, I knew I'd let him in. I'd accepted his gifts, his money. How could I explain that to the cops without sounding complicit? So I changed my locks and blocked his number. For a week, I heard nothing. I thought maybe it was over. Then one night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my door handle turning. It was subtle, just a small metallic click, but enough to jolt me awake. I froze, listening. Then I heard it again. A deliberate, careful rattle. I sat up and whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911, and that's when I noticed the glow under my door. Someone was using a flashlight. "Go away!" I screamed. The light vanished. For a second, everything was still. Then I heard footsteps retreating down the hall. I called the police. They arrived within 10 minutes. But whoever it was, and I didn't need to guess who was gone. There were scratches on the lock, but no forced entry. One officer, a guy named Rogers, asked, "Anyone you think might want to scare you?" I hesitated. "Maybe. My ex-boyfriend. He's been showing up." "Do you have his full name?" "Andrew Miller," I said. He nodded and wrote it down. When they ran his name, though, nothing came up. No address, no record, not even a driver's license in Ohio. It was like he didn't exist. The next morning, I checked my phone. There were dozens of messages, all from unknown numbers. "You didn't have to call the cops. You embarrassed me. You're making me into something I'm not. I forgive you." Then a photo of me sleeping in my bed. I dropped the phone and screamed. I left town that day, packed a bag, told my manager I needed time off, and drove 3 hours south to stay with my cousin. Lauren helped me change my number and deactivate my social media. For months, I barely slept. Every time a car slowed near the house, I panicked. Every time the doorbell rang, my chest seized. The police never found him. But 6 months later, I got a letter, no return address. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper that said, in messy handwriting, "You looked peaceful that night. I still have your old mug. Thought about bringing it back." There was a Polaroid taped below it. It was me, sitting in my cousin's kitchen, drinking coffee. I hadn't even realized the picture was taken. It's been 5 years since then. I moved again, different state. New job, new number. I don't post anything online anymore. I keep my curtains drawn, lock every door twice, sleep with a flashlight and pepper spray on my nightstand. Sometimes, when I drive at night, I'll catch a glimpse of headlights following a little too long in my rearview mirror. And even though I tell myself it's just in my head that he's gone, that he can't possibly still be out there, there's a part of me that never truly believes it. Because once, late last summer, I found something strange in my mailbox. No note, no name, just an old coffee mug, the same one that went missing all those years ago. And written on the bottom, in faded marker, were the words, "Money should never make someone like you feel small." I moved back to Clearwater, Ohio about 8 months ago. Small town, quiet streets, 2 bars, 1 grocery store, and a diner that still closes at 8:30 sharp like it's 1985. I came back because my mom's health started slipping. Nothing major, just the usual getting older stuff. But I'm an only child, and she's stubborn as hell, so I figured being nearby would ease both our worries. I found this small 1-bedroom apartment above a florist shop on Lincoln Avenue. The kind of place where the walls are thin enough to hear your neighbor sneeze. But rent's cheap and there's a small balcony that overlooks Main Street. It felt safe, comforting even. At least, for a while. My name's Rachel Monroe. I'm 31. And if you'd told me last year that I'd nearly lose my mind because of a man I never even met in person, I'd have laughed. But here I am, 6 months later, still checking my locks twice before bed, still jumping when my phone rings. It started harmlessly enough. I was scrolling through Instagram one night, sitting on the couch with leftover pizza, when an ad popped up. Find your local mentor, real connections, genuine guidance, safe, confidential. The app was called Sugar Meat. I know. The name sounds sketchy as hell, but the ad wasn't overtly sexual or creepy. It framed itself as a financial mentorship platform. Women could meet older professionals who'd help them get established, start businesses, offer advice, and in return, companionship. Not intimacy, just presence. At that point, I was barely keeping up with bills. Between rent, gas to visit my mom every other day, and her medication, my savings were evaporating. So I figured, what the hell? Maybe I'd meet someone actually decent. Maybe I'd get advice, a little support, or at least an interesting conversation. That's how I met Mark Reynolds. He messaged me within a day. His profile picture looked like something off a corporate site. Clean suit, salt and pepper hair, warm smile. Said he was 55, semi-retired, lived in Columbus but traveled often for consulting work. Our first chat was polite. "Mark, you've got a kind face, Rachel. Most people these days don't smile like that." Me, I try. It's easier than crying about my student loans. Mark, you're funny. I like that. You deserve to have someone in your corner. He said he'd been divorced 10 years, had grown kids he rarely saw, and just wanted a little light in his week. He didn't talk about sex or money right away, he just listened. And after the first few weeks, it felt comforting, like having someone older and wiser to talk to. By our 3rd week of messaging, he offered to help me financially. "Mark, you're clearly hardworking. I like that. How about I make your life a little easier? $500 a week. No strings. Just company." I hesitated. It sounded too good to be true, but he never asked for photos, never flirted inappropriately. He just said he liked texting me, hearing about my mom, my day, the little frustrations. So, after some convincing, I gave him my Venmo. And like clockwork, $500 hit my account that Friday night. Then again the next week. And the week after, he'd text me at night, "Mark, did you eat dinner tonight?" Me, "Leftover Chinese." "Mark, order something nice next time. You deserve better than reheated lo mein." Sometimes I'd forget he was technically a stranger. He knew so much about my life, my mom's name, Helen, her health issues, even which hospital she'd been to last year after her minor stroke. I assumed I'd told him in passing. Except, thinking back, I never mentioned which hospital. One night in February, he called me for the first time. His voice was warm but deliberate, like every word was chosen. "Mark, you sound tired, sweetheart." Me, "Just a long day at work." "Mark, you should get more rest. I worry about you." Something about the way he said sweetheart stuck with me. It wasn't romantic, it was possessive, like he'd been saying it for years. Then, about 2 weeks later, he started asking for small favors. Nothing alarming, just oddly specific. "Mark, can you send me a photo of your balcony? I want to imagine you there." "Mark, what's the name of that diner you go to? Maybe I'll stop by if I'm ever in Clearwater." When I hesitated to share details, he'd back off. Always gentle, always apologetic. "Mark, I didn't mean to pry, Rachel. I just like knowing where you are. Makes me feel close." It was March 9th. I remember because it snowed that night, just a light dusting, and my mom had called earlier asking if I'd swing by tomorrow to fix her TV. Around 9:20 p.m., my phone rang. The number was local. Unknown. "Hello?" I answered. A calm, professional-sounding woman said, "Hi, is this Rachel Monroe? I'm calling from Mercy General Hospital. Your mother's been admitted after a fall. She's awake, but asking for you." My heart dropped. "Oh my God, is she okay?" I asked. "She's stable, but she hit her head." "Can you get here soon?" She gave me the exact hospital address, mentioned my mom's full name, even referenced her medication for blood pressure. Everything checked out. I didn't think twice. I grabbed my coat, keys, and rushed out. Didn't even lock the door. The drive to Mercy General took 22 minutes. I parked crooked, ran inside, and blurted out my mother's name at the reception desk. The nurse looked up from her computer. "Ma'am, there's no one by that name here." "There has to be. I just got a call." She double-checked. Nothing. Then she said gently, "You might want to call your mom. Maybe it was another hospital." I stepped outside, hands shaking, and called my mom's landline. She answered, groggy. "Rachel? What's wrong?" "Mom, did you fall?" "What? No, I was sleeping." "Why?" That's when it hit me like ice water. Someone had lured me out of my apartment. I sped home. The drive back felt endless. My stomach churned the whole way. When I pulled into my driveway, the door looked exactly as I'd left it closed. Lights still off. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew. Drawers were pulled open. My TV was gone. My laptop. The jewelry box my dad gave me before he passed. And something worse, my framed family photos had been emptied. The photos were gone, but the frames left behind. Even my bathroom cabinet was raided, prescription bottles missing, vitamins scattered on the floor. It wasn't just theft. It was personal. I called 911 immediately. When officers arrived, I told them everything. They took notes, dusted for prints, and asked about the phone call. One of them, a younger cop named Sanders, looked uneasy. "Officer Sanders, you said they knew your mom's name and her surgery?" Me. "Yeah. Everything. Even her meds." "Officer Sanders, that's weird. They weren't after quick cash. They wanted something else." "Identity theft, maybe. But why take the photos? Why the prescriptions? I didn't sleep that night." Or the next. A few days later, my bank app pinged me. A $500 transfer from Mark Reynolds, same as always. But I hadn't spoken to him since the break-in. When I messaged him on Sugar Meat, the chat history was gone. His account deleted. I tried emailing the app's support team. They said the user had requested full data removal. No trace left. Then I noticed something chilling. The fake hospital number that called me matched the first 6 digits of his old phone number. I don't know how he got my mom's medical info, but I think he'd been digging for months. Every time I mentioned her, he made notes. Maybe cross-referenced public databases. Maybe even spoofed local numbers to sound legitimate. The police traced the call. It was unregistered, probably a burner. I replaced my locks, installed a Ring camera above the door, started double-checking everything. But I still felt watched. Sometimes I'd get a faint knock at 3 a.m., 3 taps, soft, then silence. Once, my mom said someone called her, asking if she was Rachel's mother. When I asked what they said, she frowned. "Mom, he just said he was proud of you, that you were everything he hoped for." Then hung up. That was 4 months ago. Nothing since. Still, every night, I look at the camera feed before bed. Once in a while, the motion alert goes off around midnight, showing nothing but the shadow of a passing car. Or maybe not a car at all. Sometimes I swear I see the faint outline of someone standing across the street just outside the glow of the street lamp. Still, waiting. I don't know if it's him or someone else, but I do know this: whoever it was knew everything about me before I ever heard their voice. And they're still out there. I never really thought of myself as the kind of guy who'd ever fall into something like that. The whole sugar daddy thing, I mean. I'm 31, work as a freelance IT contractor out of Phoenix, and I live a pretty quiet life. My friends joke that I'm an old man trapped in a young guy's body. I don't go clubbing, I don't drink much, and I've never been one to chase relationships. I work, I lift, I eat, I sleep, repeat. But after my last breakup, the loneliness started creeping in harder than I expected. It's one thing to be alone, because you're busy. It's another to sit in your apartment every night with nothing but the hum of the fridge and your own thoughts. So, when a girl from a dating app messaged me, younger, outgoing, funny, I didn't question how out of my league she seemed. Her name was Sierra, or at least, that's what she said it was. We met on an app called LuxMatch, which, honestly, I'd only downloaded as a joke after seeing ads for it pop up on Instagram. It was marketed toward exclusive connections for successful men. I sure as hell didn't feel like one, but curiosity got the better of me. Her first message came around 2 a.m. "Sierra, you look like trouble in a hoodie." She had this effortlessly confident way of talking, not flirty in a forced way, but natural, teasing. Her profile said she was 24, studying design, and looking for something mutually beneficial. I knew exactly what that meant, but the way she spoke didn't sound transactional. It sounded human. Over the next few days, we talked constantly. She told me about her sugar daddy horror stories, how most guys on there were pushy or creepy. I told her I wasn't like that, which, looking back, is probably exactly what every creep says. After a week, she asked to meet in person. The restaurant she chose was one of those trendy rooftop spots downtown where everything's overpriced and comes in tiny portions. I almost bailed because it felt too pretentious. But when I saw her sitting there, all of that melted away. She looked exactly like her photos: long, dark hair, sharp eyes, denim jacket over a sundress. Not overdressed, not fake, just real. "Wow," I remember saying as I approached. "You're actually you." She laughed, her voice soft and disarming. "You sound surprised." "You'd be surprised how many filters there are out there," I said. "Oh, trust me. I've met my share of liars too." Dinner went better than I'd imagined. She asked real questions about my work, my life, my mom, who I still helped out occasionally after my dad passed. She talked about growing up in Tucson, how she wanted to move to California, maybe open a boutique someday. By the time the check came, she didn't ask for anything. No money, no arrangement. Just said she'd like to see me again. Over the next few weeks, things got comfortable. Too comfortable. Sierra started coming over more often, first once a week, then a few nights in a row. She'd cook, watch movies, crash on the couch. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, but the truth was, it started to feel like we were dating. Still, there were things that didn't quite add up. She never talked about her family. Her phone was always on silent. Sometimes she'd disappear for a full day, saying she was with a client. I didn't want to be that jealous guy, but one night curiosity got the best of me, and I looked her up online. Nothing. No Instagram, no Facebook, no school records, no trace of a Sierra from Tucson matching her description. That's when things started getting strange. The first weird thing happened on a Thursday night. I'd just gotten home from a job out in Mesa and was dead tired. I went to bed around 11, and sometime after midnight, I woke up to the sound of someone pacing in my living room. Not walking, pacing, slow, steady footsteps on the hardwood, back and forth, back and forth. I froze. Sierra wasn't supposed to be there that night. She'd told me she was staying with her friend. I grabbed my phone, quietly rolled out of bed, and crept to the hallway. The light from the street lamps cut through the blinds, slicing faint stripes across the floor. "Sierra?" I whispered. The footsteps stopped. Then, after a pause, her voice came from the dark. "You shouldn't sneak up like that." I jumped. She was standing by the window, staring out into the street. "Jesus, you scared me," I said. "I thought someone broke in." She didn't look at me. "Someone was here," she said softly. "But it's fine. He's gone now." My stomach dropped. "What? Who was here?" "Just someone who shouldn't be." She finally turned toward me, and the look in her eyes was hard to describe, like she wasn't scared, but resigned. I tried pressing for details, but she brushed it off and climbed into bed. I barely slept that night. 2 days later, I noticed something else. When I got back from the gym, my front door was unlocked. I was certain I'd locked it before leaving. Inside, nothing seemed stolen, but one thing was different. The framed photo of me and my dad, the one I kept on the hallway table, had been flipped face down. I called Sierra immediately, but she didn't answer. When she finally texted back that evening, all she said was, "Sorry, been busy, miss you." No mention of the door. No explanation. That weekend, she showed up again, unannounced, carrying takeout and acting like everything was normal. I confronted her about the door, and her response caught me off guard. "You think I broke in?" she asked, looking genuinely offended. "I'm not saying that, but you're the only one with a key." She exhaled sharply and sat down. "I told you someone's been following me. I think maybe he came here when I wasn't around." "Following you? What are you talking about?" "You remember I said I had a few bad sugar daddies before?" she said, her voice trembling slightly. "One of them didn't take it well when I stopped seeing him. He's been showing up places." I wanted to believe her, but the whole thing sounded like a Lifetime movie. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because you'd freak out," she said. "You'd tell me to go to the cops, and the cops don't do shit unless something happens." We argued for nearly an hour. She swore she'd handle it and didn't want to drag me into it. I told her I didn't care, I just wanted her safe. That night, she stayed over again, and when I woke up the next morning, she was gone. Her clothes, her charger, everything, like she'd never been there. 3 days passed with no contact. Then, on Wednesday night, I got a knock at my door. Not a light knock, it was forceful, angry. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach flipped. It wasn't Sierra. It was a man mid-40s, bald, wearing a wrinkled suit. His face was flushed, his breathing erratic. "Can I help you?" I asked through the door. "Where is she?" he snapped. "Who? Don't play dumb with me, you son of a bitch. Where is she?" I stepped back, my pulse hammering. "I don't know who you're talking about, man." He slammed his hand against the door so hard it rattled. "You think you can hide her here again? This is my house. She doesn't belong with you." "Dude, you've got the wrong..." "Don't lie to me." He reached into his jacket pocket, and for a split second, I thought he was pulling out a gun. I bolted for my phone, but when I turned back, he was gone. Just vanished. The cops showed up 20 minutes later, took my statement, and told me they'd keep an eye on the area. But they didn't find anyone matching his description. When I told them about Sierra, they asked for her full name and contact info. I gave them everything I had: her number, her Lux Match profile, but by the next morning, her entire account had been deleted. Every text thread, every photo, Every call log, gone. That Friday I got a letter in the mail. It had no return address, just my name, written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a printed photo, one I'd never seen before. It was Sierra and me, sitting on my couch, smiling, except I wasn't wearing the same shirt I remembered wearing that night, and the photo had another man's hand resting on her shoulder. There was no man there that night. On the back of the photo, in messy handwriting, were 4 words: "You're living his life." I don't know how else to describe what happened after that except to say my life started unraveling. I'd hear footsteps in the house when I was alone. The security camera I installed would pick up motion but never show anything on playback. One morning, I found a used coffee mug in the sink that wasn't mine. I started sleeping with a knife on the nightstand. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of my front door creaking open. I leapt out of bed, knife in hand, and moved quietly toward the living room. The TV was on static, flickering across the screen, and in the glow, I could see someone sitting on the couch. It was Sierra. "What the hell are you doing here?" I shouted. She turned her head slowly toward me, her eyes dark and unreadable. "He said I could come back," she whispered. "Who? Who said that?" "The man who lives here." My blood went cold. "Sierra, this is my house." She smiled faintly, almost pitying. "That's what he said too." And before I could respond, the lights flickered, and for a split second, I swear I saw him, the bald man, standing behind her. When the lights came back on, both of them were gone. The police didn't believe me, of course. Said maybe I'd been dreaming or hallucinating from lack of sleep. But I know what I saw. A few days later, I moved out. I left most of my stuff behind the couch. The TV, even my clothes. I just needed to go. I've since found a new apartment across town. Smaller, older, but quiet. I try not to think about her, or him, or what any of it meant. But last night, I got a text from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. It was Sierra, smiling, sitting on a couch. My new couch. And next to her, barely visible in the corner of the frame, was me asleep.